A crown prince crosses a river to fight a pharaoh's army. By autumn, he will be king of Babylon. By winter, Egypt's empire in Asia will be over. This is Carchemish, the last battle of the world that Assyria built. His father is still alive, still king, too old or too ill to campaign. So the eldest son takes the army, Nebuchadnezzar, crown prince of Akkad, and rides for the Euphrates, where Egypt has been holding the door open for 4 years. The tablet that records the year does not call him king yet. It calls him the man who wins. Assyria is already gone. Nineveh is a ruin heap. Harran has failed. What remains is a contest for the corpse. Egypt, under Necho II, occupying the old western roads from a forward base at Carchemish, and Babylon, which has taken the heartland and now wants the rest. Everything between the Nile and the Zagros is about to change hands, not in a decade of slow pressure, but in one campaigning season. After the siege of Harran failed, Necho did not go home empty-handed. He kept Carchemish. He ran Syria from it. He made Judah a vassal and put his own man on the throne in Jerusalem. For 4 years, Egypt was the power that still answered the phone in Asia, an empire of garrisons and roads, built on what Assyria could no longer hold. It looked, from Memphis, like a second chance at empire. That was the whole point of propping Assyria up in the first place. Necho's father had spent years paying to keep a dying empire on its feet, because a weak Assyria in the north was better than a strong Babylon on Egypt's doorstep. When Assyria stopped being a state, Egypt tried to become the West instead. Carchemish was the keystone of that gamble. The Babylonian Chronicle is blunt about the year. In the 21st year of Nabopolassar, the king of Akkad stayed in his own land. Nebuchadnezzar, his eldest son, the crown prince, mustered the Babylonian army and took command of his troops. No council of war is described. No debate. The old man stays. The son marches. He marches for Carchemish, which the tablet says is on the bank of the Euphrates. That is not a metaphor. Carchemish sits on the great river crossing of the north, the place where an army from the heartland meets an army from Egypt without either having to invent a new road. Whoever holds it holds the door between Anatolia, Syria, and the river world that runs down to the Gulf. Carchemish had been a great city long before this war. Hittite capital, Assyrian prize, trade not on the river. By 605 BC, it is something simpler and more dangerous. Egypt's farthest fist, and the last place where Assyria's ghost still has a bodyguard. The Chronicle does not care about its past. It cares that the Egyptian army lies there. The tablet does not invent a siege. It invents a crossing. Nebuchadnezzar goes over the Euphrates to hit the Egyptian army where it lies. That is the whole opening move. Force a river, force a fight, before Egypt can choose the ground or wait him out behind walls. They fight. The Chronicle does not give us formations, wing commanders, or numbers. It gives us a result in 3 beats. They fought with each other. The Egyptian army withdrew before him. He accomplished their defeat. Whatever the field looked like at noon, by evening Egypt is leaving it. The tablet has already decided who owns the afternoon. Later artists will invent the smoke and the melee. The clay does not. What it insists on is decisiveness, not a hard-fought draw, not a costly check, but a beating so complete the next sentence is already about the men who got away too fast to be hit. That is the victory line as Babylon wants it carved. Beat them to non-existence. Then a second sentence, almost embarrassed, admits some Egyptians got out so fast no weapon had touched them. The tablet is about to hunt them down, because a route that is not finished is only a delay. In the district of Hamath, down the road toward Egypt, into the Orontes country, Babylonian troops overtake the fugitives. The Chronicle finishes the job in one cold formula. Not a single man escaped to his own country. At that time, it says, Nebuchadnezzar conquered the whole area of Hamath. Carchemish is the clash. Hamath is the closing of the door. Treat that last line carefully. It is a Babylonian victory bulletin on clay. It is our best source, and it has every reason to erase Egypt completely. Modern historians doubt the entire Egyptian army died at Carchemish and Hamath. Garrison troops may have been the main force on the Euphrates. What is not in doubt is the strategic result. Egypt's Asian empire breaks here. No order of battle. No casualty roll. 1 Babylonian chronicle, 0 Egyptian war memorials, and a Hebrew poem that still knows the place name. That is the whole archive for the battle that ends Egypt's hold on Asia. Accuracy here means refusing to invent the missing numbers. Egypt does not write Carchemish down. No temple relief of the rout. No stela of the dead. For a pharaoh who had marched 500 miles to prop up Assyria and then to own Syria, the silence is the defeat. Influence ending without a monument to argue with. Empires advertise victories. They bury the day the road closed. Judah remembers it differently, as poetry and politics. Jeremiah names Necho, names Carchemish, names Nebuchadnezzar, and already calls him king, though his father was still breathing when the river was crossed. The poem does not need the succession date. It needs the shock that Egypt could break. For a small kingdom between superpowers, Carchemish is not a foreign curiosity. It is the moment the overlords change. Judah had been made to kneel to Egypt after Josiah died. Within a few years it will kneel to Babylon instead, and then learn what Babylon does to cities that stand up. Then the campaign turns into a succession crisis at a gallop. Nabopolassar dies on the 8th of Abu, mid-August by our calendar. Nebuchadnezzar leaves the west unfinished and rides for Babylon, because a crown prince who wins a river and loses a throne has won nothing. On the 1st of Elul, early September, he sits on the royal throne in Babylon. A summer that began with a crossing ends with a coronation. The man who won Carchemish is now king of Babylon. He will go back west almost immediately. The tablet says he marches unopposed through Hutti and takes heavy tribute. The door Egypt held is his door now. The first year of a reign is written in other people's fear. Egypt falls back behind its own frontier. The Levantine road, the Philistine coast, the small kings who had learned to read Egyptian signals. All of that now answers to Babylon, or will learn to. Carchemish did not just win a field. It reassigned the west. From the Euphrates to the border of Egypt, the map has a new owner. 248 years from the first great coalition fight at Carchemish to this river. Peak Assyria at Jerusalem. Capital erased at Nineveh. Last stand that was not a stand at Harran. Finale at Carchemish. That is the season, not every battle on earth, but every battle that closed this war. Assyria's world did not end with a single fire. It ended in stages: heartland, last court, last sponsor. Carchemish is where the sponsor breaks, and a new empire stops pretending it is only filling a vacuum. Babylon is not looting a corpse anymore. Babylon is the order that writes the next century. What ends here is bigger than one pharaoh's bad summer. The Near East that took orders from Nineveh is finished. Egypt will fight again, even bloodily, on its own border, but never again as the heir to Assyria's west. The age that began with imperial Assyria on every road has a closing date: 605. The men who crossed the river that summer did not know they were ending a season of history. They knew a fight, a road, a king who might die while they were gone. We get the clay and the poem. They got the water and the dust. Both are true. Only one of them survives as a sentence. That is the end of Assyria's world and Egypt's hold on Asia. From Carchemish to Carchemish, one campaign arc, in order. Next season, we pick a new war. Subscribe if you want the next campaign from the first map.